treatment yet, and to get treatment, they would have to go to Japan or Germany. She mentioned that even in nearby Japan, the cost would be about 100 million. This news left Yuna shocked and worried. Seovyun's mother continued, explaining that they had already spent all their rent money and severance pay on treatment expenses and could no longer afford the necessary funds. Yuna became teary-eyed, thinking about the immense sum of 100 million and wondering how she could possibly gather such an amount immediately. Yunha left the place in tears, overwhelmed by the thought of needing to save money somehow, even though she could barely earn a salary. As she walked away, suddenly Jiwon stood in front of her and tried to get her attention, but she was unaware of him and accidentally bumped into him. She wondered what she had bumped into, feeling something unfamiliar, and then looked up at his face. Realizing it was the gangster boss, she became anxious and confused about why he was there. Both of them felt nervous. Jiwon apologized and, blushing while looking away, asked if he could have her hand. Yuna, scared and startled by his request, quickly apologized in a panic. Jiwon called out to her using her name, Miss Go-eun, which startled Yuna even more. She was frightened, wondering how he knew her name and considering if this was some aspect of the dark world she had heard about. Overwhelmed with emotion, she believed there was only one thing she could do. Yuna knelt before Jiwon, tears streaming down her face, and apologized sincerely. She expressed regret for hurting someone and then running away irresponsibly. She sobbed as she apologized, explaining that she had been terrified at the time and pleaded for him to stop. Jiwon attempted to explain and console her, assuring her that it wasn't like that. He reached out his hand towards her, but Yuna misunderstood his gesture and, still scared, yelled out a refusal, stating firmly that she would report any violence against her. Suddenly, some kids attacked Jiwon, thinking he was bothering Yuna. They hit him with their hands and called him a scoundrel, which surprised Jiwon. The kids urged Yuna to run away quickly, assuring her they would handle the situation. Yuna became concerned for the safety of the kids, worrying if Jiwon might retaliate against them. She quickly intervened, lifting all the kids and calling them to come with her. In a swift motion, she ran away from the scene. Jiwon tried to stop her, calling out, "Wait," but Yuna continued to run away, leaving him behind. Jiwon sat contemplating the daunting sum of 100 million needed for Seohyun's treatment. He wondered how he could possibly acquire such a large amount. Meanwhile, his gang members were bewildered by Jiwon's behavior. They knew he owned a company with annual sales exceeding 20 billion won and was immensely wealthy. One of them asked him what he was worrying about, expressing confusion. In response to a member whispering to Il-young that the doctor had declared Jiwon fully recovered, Il-young became furious. He angrily questioned whether they should take action against the doctor for causing such concern. Jiwon thought to himself that there was no way Yuna, who worked part-time, could have such a large amount of money. He remembered how frightened she had been when they first encountered each other, pleading for no violence. This made him feel disappointed as he wondered if that was how she perceived him. He reflected on her small stature and how she could hit someone without hesitation. Considering how scared she might be if he directly handed her the money, he dismissed the idea of leaving 100 million won in front of her door, fearing she would take it to the police station. He pondered over how he could discreetly give her the money without alarming her, thinking carefully about the best approach. Il-young informed Jiwon that someone from the Criminal Investigation Office had arrived. Despite Jiwon's earlier directive to stop, Il-young argued that they needed to proceed to uncover who was behind the attempted attack on him. He emphasized that since someone from the Criminal Investigation Agency was already present, it was an opportunity they shouldn't miss. After a brief moment of contemplation, Jiwon agreed and instructed Il-young to allow the person from the Criminal Investigation Office to come in. The Criminal Investigations agent, visibly nervous, provided detailed information to Jiwon about Go-eun. According to the agent, she was 27 years old and had graduated from the Department of Mathematics at Korea Women's University. She furthered her education by earning a master's degree from graduate school. Her family was affluent, with parents possessing assets of approximately 10 billion won. Her mother was a university professor and her father, a former judge, now worked as a lawyer. Her siblings were also accomplished, an older sister who was a doctor and an older brother who served as a prosecutor. Notably, Go-eun was the only one in her family to graduate from Korea Women's University, while all her other relatives graduated from Korea University, a prestigious institution in South Korea. Upon hearing the detailed background of Go-eun, the members of Jiwon's gang whispered among themselves, noting the prestigious features of her family. They expressed disbelief that someone from such an elite background could be involved in criminal activities. The agent continued to provide information explaining that despite her affluent upbringing, Go-eun had conflicts with her parents after becoming a kid's creator and was no longer receiving financial support from them. Jiwon pondered aloud, wondering why Yoonha, who came from a wealthy family background, would take on a part-time cleaning job in a building. It became clear to him that this decision was likely driven by the conflict with her parents. The agent relayed further details to Jiwon, mentioning that Go Eun-ha had been urgently seeking funds recently, exploring options including banking and private loans, although she hadn't borrowed any money yet. The agent admitted not knowing the exact reason for her financial strain. Upon hearing this, Jiwon realized that the amount Go Eun-ha needed was indeed 100 million won, confirming his suspicions. The agent flinched under his gaze as Jiwon absorbed the information. Then the agent mentioned that Go Eun-ha was scheduled to attend a charity auction that afternoon to support children with cancer. Upon hearing this, Jiwon swiftly formulated a plan. He instructed Ilyong to immediately bring 100 million won in cash, intending to provide it to Yoon-ha at the auction. Yoon-ha, feeling despondent, headed to work, lamenting her financial situation. She thought about how unlikely it was for anyone to lend her 100 million won when her monthly salary was only 700,000 won. The situation with Seo-hyun's treatment weighed heavily on her mind, and she calculated the exorbitant amount she would need to repay if she took a private loan with a monthly interest rate of 12%. Realizing that even with multiple part-time jobs, she would never be able to repay the loan, she laughed bitterly at her predicament. However, she became determined, thinking that if their company had as many young YouTubers as the Play with Yina channel, which had gained 1 million subscribers in just 2 years, she could potentially earn enough for Seo-hyun's treatment. She knew that convincing Yina, the popular kids creator and granddaughter of a large corporation's chairman, to help would be key. Despite the director's failure to persuade her, Yoon-ha resolved not to give up. At Yina's studio, Yoon-ha met with Yina, expressing her gratitude for her hard work. Yina, noticing Yoon-ha, questioned her presence. Yoon-ha explained that she had heard from the manager about Yena's refusal to attend the charity auction and inquired if she could reconsider. Yina, however, responded firmly, questioning why she should participate in an event meant to support her sister's fans. Yoon-ha was taken aback by Yena's response. Yena further elaborated that she only participated in events when she received sponsorships for expensive toys, unlike the clay dolls and similar items. Yoon-ha nervously pondered how to handle her friends who couldn't afford expensive toys. Gathering her resolve, she attempted to persuade Yina, acknowledging her point but emphasizing the importance of helping the kids. She implored Yina, a popular young YouTuber, to attend the auction and offered to do her a favor in return. Yina, considering the offer, smirked and disparaged Yoon-ha by reminding her of her part-time job as a cleaner. She then proposed that Yoon-ha clean her house, which was in disarray due to her busy schedule, and even offered to pay her a daily wage. Yoon-ha, initially taken aback, didn't fully grasp Yena's intentions but eagerly agreed, excited by the prospect of helping Seo-hyun and earning money. She enthusiastically accepted the task, expressing her gratitude and holding Yena's hand, praising her generosity and wishing her blessings. Yena, surprised by Yuma's reaction, thanked her and asked her to take care of the cleaning. At the auction, Yena's toys were a huge hit, with people eagerly bidding to buy them. The auctioneer announced that Yena's toys were sold out and it was time to auction off Minnie's toys from the Minnie and Friends channel. Yuna felt a surge of hope, thinking that her subscribers must have seen her videos and would appreciate the toys she brought. She believed that while her toys might not be as popular as Yena's, it would still attract interest. However, when the auctioneer saw Yuma's clay toy, he was incredulous. He questioned whether it was serious to auction off a clay doll and expressed disbelief. Yuna was shocked and anxious, wondering if her toy was really that humble. The auctioneer suggested starting the bid at 101, unsure of how else to proceed. Seeing the disinterest, Yena stepped forward and took Yuna's clay toy in her hands, trying to draw attention. She asked everyone to focus for a moment and introduced the clay figure as Admiral Yi Sun-sin, highlighting the cool armor and sword. However, despite Yena's effort, the crowd remained unimpressed and uninterested. Yena tried to start the bidding at 10,000 won, but nobody showed any enthusiasm. The crowd made disparaging comments, questioning the value of auctioning a clay doll and expressing their unwillingness to buy it. Yuna, hearing the negative remarks, felt a wave of sadness wash over her. As Juwon and Ilyong entered the auction, the room fell silent. Juwon confidently announced that he would buy the clay figure for 100 million won. The crowd was stunned, unable to believe that someone would pay such an exorbitant amount for a humble toy. Yoon-ha, recognizing Juwon, felt a surge of worry. She remembered him as the gang boss from before, and the sight of him approaching made her anxious. The tension in the room grew as everyone recognized Juwon and Ilyong, becoming visibly nervous. Ilyong addressed the auctioneer, asking if the statue of Admiral Yi Sun-sin was the one being auctioned. The auctioneer, anxious and unsure, confirmed it. Ilyong, frustrated by the situation, expressed his irritation, but then firmly declared that they would buy it, leaving no room for doubt. The auctioneer, still in shock, quickly agreed. The auctioneer, still processing the shock, stammered that the starting price was 10,000 won. Juwon, without breaking his gaze from Yuna, firmly corrected him, stating he would buy it for 100 million won. The auctioneer, stunned and incredulous, confirmed the sale, declaring Ju-won the winner at 100 million won. Yoon-ha, overwhelmed and confused by the turn of events, nervously approached Ju-won and Il-leong as they prepared to leave with the toy. She asked them why they would spend such an enormous amount on her clay figure. Ju-won responded coolly, questioning if he was not allowed to participate in charity auctions. Yoon-ha tried to explain her concern, pointing out that it was a significant amount of money. Ju-won reassured her that she needn't worry about it. Still baffled, Yoon-ha murmured, wondering who would buy a clay doll for 100 million won. Ju-won paused for a moment, then made his request. He asked Yoon-ha to meet with him and play 3 times, insisting it was all he needed. Yoon-ha, still perplexed by the entire situation, couldn't grasp his intention. She repeated his words, asking in disbelief if he really wanted her to play with him. Later that night, Yoon-ha and Gumi-ho were at a club, drinking together. Gumi-ho, surprised and intrigued, asked if Yoon-ha had really received 100 million won from the gangster. Yoon-ha confirmed, explaining that he had given it to her in cash. Gumi-ho inquired about the money, and Yoon-ha replied that she had given it to Seo-hyun, who left for Japan the previous night to receive treatment. Gumi-ho, teasing, remarked that since Yoon-ha had earned the money by sacrificing herself to the gang boss, it should work out well. Yoon-ha suddenly felt anxious and confided in Gumi-ho, wondering what the gangster really wanted from her. She repeated his request to meet 3 times and play with him, expressing her confusion and anxiety about what he might mean by "play with me." Trembling, she speculated about his intentions, fearing the worst. Gumi-ho, with a mischievous glint, suggested that maybe playing involved something sinister like drugs or a gruesome game of rearranging body organs. This frightened Yoon-ha, who told Gumi-ho not to joke around as she was already feeling anxious. Gumi-ho, seeing Yoon-ha's fear, tried to reassure her by suggesting that maybe the gangster was just a fan and that she should think of him as a big kid with a big body.